Hello everyone, my name is Jason Decker with Trucking 101. We're here today to speak about going direct with customers and how to make those sales happen. Since this is a little bit out of my wheelhouse as far as my expertise, wanted to bring in someone that's much better at it than myself. So today we have Matt Stermetz joining us. Matt, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about you and what you got going on there, bud.
Sure. Been in the industry for about 10 years, Jason. Grew up around trucking. My dad owned a trucking company here locally in Fort Smith, where we're based out of. But as far as industry experience, I've been in the sales piece for about 10 years. Currently, I'm the vice president of sales for general transportation, and we oversee roughly about $100 million a year in freight spend.
Awesome. That's moving a lot of loads.
Yeah.
That's moving a lot of freight. Okay, so another question we have, what recommendations do you have for drivers when they're approaching new customers? Not just the do I call, email, or go on site, but once they do have them on the phone or they do have that interaction with them, what's the best practices at that point?
So the best place to start once you're engaged in a conversation with these shippers is going to be from their pain points. So you might start out by asking them, hey, what are your heaviest shipping areas? What markets do you ship to the most? Okay, once you establish that, you say, what are your pain points? What lanes are you having the biggest problems with? Because they're always going to be willing to give you a shot on the lanes they're having problems with.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's the best place to start. Another thing is I would tell carriers to be mindful of what they can actually service. If you have one truck or two trucks, like, I wouldn't go in and say that you can service everything they've got.
Absolutely.
Don't overcommit. Be realistic on the front end with what you can handle from a capacity standpoint, and it's only going to pay dividends for you in the long run. You don't want to set yourself up for failure right out of the gate by overcommitting to something.
Absolutely. Well, it kind of goes back to that old adage. It's under promise, over perform.
Yep.
So absolutely, and do that. And we've all made the mistake of saying, oh, I can take on this, and this, and then when it comes down to the nut cutting, it's we fall short on that, and that happens from time to time, and they understand that. But I'm going to jump in, or I'm going to say this to that piece is, if you ever get in a position where maybe you did overcommit to a customer or you are struggling on a piece, communication is huge. They very much appreciate if you reach out to them and say, hey, I know we talked about this or that, but I'm struggling on this lane a little bit here. Here's what I've got going on. Sometimes they might say, well, hey, we're going to have to go a different direction, but other times they'll make the statement, oh, that's not a problem. We can move this around or do this and work with you. But if you don't communicate with them and keep good people on good lanes there and everything, so communication is key.
I agree, and I do want to add one thing to that is on the communication piece, always be transparent. If there's problems, whether it's a current load or a load you're supposed to be picking up, tell them. These are difficult conversations to have, right? Like on the sales side, you're directly involved with decision makers, and they don't like when you tell them you can't pick up a load, right? They don't like when there's a claim but the more transparent you can be, I promise you that they appreciate that in the long run.
Absolutely, 100% agree with that, 100%. So we get a lot of questions. This is probably, if not the number one question, in the top two at least, is what is the best type of customer to approach? Is it the large customer, the small one, medium? In your opinion, what do you see? And let's look at this and think about this from an small fleet to owner-operator side.
Certainly. I would focus on small to medium customers. And when I say small to medium customers, I'm talking to anybody that ships 1 load to 10 loads a week.
Okay.
For multiple reasons. First off, just like we talked about, I think 2 questions ago, the setup process is going to be faster.
Yep.
You're going to be able to get your foot in the door faster, get your operation up and running. 2, you always have to be mindful about the freight that you're shipping. Okay, am I going to make more money shipping finished goods like lawnmowers or tennis shoes, or am I going to be better off shipping paper that makes products? Well, your finished goods are always going to have higher margin. So I always try to target finished good customers because there's usually a little bit more money in the loads versus hauling raw materials.
That's good. I did not know that. It makes sense now that you say that, but I've never thought about it that way. Well, I told a driver that one time, or owner operator that one time, and he's like, you're just saying that because y'all want all the big customers. I will say from my point of view, or my history in doing this, and I'm this is my 17th year, is the larger the customer, a lot of times the cheaper the freight. And I'm not knocking anything. We love all freight. We appreciate everything, but your bigger customers generally will be more price sensitive because they are producing at such a large volume that they have to keep their costs down as much as possible. Where your smaller manufacturers are going to focus more on service because they're not shipping 50,000 loads a month. They're shipping maybe 10 or 20 loads a month, and so when that product gets there, it needs to be there on time and it needs to be taken care of. So we see a lot of times that our higher margin stuff is our smaller to medium-sized manufacturers because they're not near as price sensitive as they are service based, and a lot of times those manufacturers are up and coming as well, just like owner operators and small fleets. They're trying to get their foot in the door at places, and so they're willing to pay a little more to make sure their product's not late, because when they're having to compete with these manufacturers that are doing the same thing they do, make the exact same product, but they're shipping on a larger quantity, it's just like being a carrier. When you're a carrier, you can't win by quantity, but you can win by quality. Manufacturing's the same, so I wholeheartedly agree with that. Perfect.
Yeah, and it's almost like, if you think about it this way, your smaller shippers, there's a lot less eyes on the freight spend. When you're shipping 2 loads a month versus 200 loads a week, there's a lot less people looking at the transportation cost for that company.
Absolutely. That's perfect. I appreciate it. So, all right. So, last question for you today is, any last recommendations? Any other pieces that you recommend to these drivers?
Some high level points. Stay positive. That's first and foremost. You're going to get turned down a lot more, just like any broker or any large carrier. It doesn't matter who you are. You're not going to overcome objection or rejection. Secondly, do what is truly a fit for your business model and your operation. If you've got one truck, stay true to that. Don't try to make a customer fit just because you want to work with a customer direct. Because at the end of the day, you're better off sticking it out with a broker a little bit longer versus trying to make a direct customer fit that's not really a fit for your business model.
Absolutely.
And then, two, I would always, me personally, doing this just as long as I have, keep track of the prospects and customers that you have, whether that's pen and paper in your truck or whether you have access to a CRM on your computer. Whatever's available to you, find a way to keep track of who you're talking to, when you've called them, when you've emailed them. You need to log all that, because if not, you'll start repeating yourself and there'll be some overlap there that you're not even probably aware of.
Absolutely. That's actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because that is a common issue is if you've only talked to 1, 2, or 3 customers, it's easy to remember those conversations, who you talked to, what you talked about. But when you're prospecting customers, there's times you might talk to 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 people in a week's time, and there's no way you're going to be able to mentally be able to remember all that, or at least I can't. That's for sure.
No, you're not alone.
Yeah, it's not even close. So one of the things that we did, and you have to remember, at trucking101.net, everything that we post up there is free. It's free for the drivers, these small and medium carriers. So we created a CRM. And what does CRM stand for, Matt? Do you know?
It stands for Customer Relationship Management.
Okay, customer relationship manager. So what this does, this CRM, and you can go on there and it's downloadable. It's not in our system. It goes to your system. We're not tracking anything you're doing on there. This is exclusive to you. It goes on there. The first tab is gives you a little bit of a rundown about the CRM, what it is, how to use it. It gives you an example. The next tab on there is your prospects list. This is going to be everyone that you speak to, not just your ones that you convert into being customers, but anyone that you're talking to that is a potential customer. That's your prospect. And in there, you can track their name, phone number, email address, put notes in there. If they said, hey, man, last weekend we went out riding dirt bikes, had a lot of fun with the kids, make sure you put something in there. He likes to go riding dirt bikes, or she likes to go riding dirt bikes with the kids. It's a lot of fun. And that way, when you circle back around to have a conversation with him or her again, it's one of those conversations you say, well, y'all been out riding dirt bikes lately? I remember the last time we spoke. And that goes back to that relationship piece. You know, the CRMs are only as good as what you put into it. So it's only as good as what you use. But if you'll use this tool to track this stuff, and especially over the course of a week, a month, a year, all of a sudden you have a lot of information put in there. And then here's another thing that we've ran into. On the 4th tab, we have our terms. And when I say terms, I'm not talking about legal terms. This is terminology that shipping managers and customers use a lot of times. It's terminology that isn't always used per se in the trucking industry on the when talking to drivers, owner operators and stuff. And so if a manager uses a term that you're unfamiliar with, go to that list. We've put that list on there, what it means. We'll continue to keep adding to that as y'all request us to. But that way, if they're asking you for something and you're not sure what it is and you don't want to have to try to Google it or track it down, we have a lot of the terminology on there, and this way it can help you have conversations. And one of the best things you can do is have that download pulled up when you're speaking to that transportation manager, and that way as they're telling you things, you can be putting that information in there. But also, if they use a term that you're not familiar with, click over that term tab, look it up while you're on the phone with them, and that way you can speak about what they're talking about, and you're not having to fumble through things. So at the end of the day, Trucking 101 is here to service the transportation industry, specifically the small carriers, the owner operators. That's why we had Matt here today. We want y'all to be successful. We need y'all to be successful. We know that the entire industry as a whole is hurting right now, but no one is hurting as much as your small carriers and your owner operators. So use Trucking 101 as a resource. There's all kinds of cool stuff on there. We're continually updating it on a daily basis. We're going to be putting more and more free stuff on there, and all this is for y'all. We want y'all to be successful. We want y'all to do well. Out for our next video, we'll be speaking with Marshall Schwartz, and he is the Vice President of Truckload and at ART Transport, and we'll be discussing variable cost versus fixed cost and how that relates to your business model. So y'all be safe out on the road. Have a great day, and let us know if you need anything. Don't forget to visit us at trucking101.net. Thank you.